Thank you so much. So good to be with people. Oh, I've been going to the Church of the Larger Fellowship online because I couldn't make it work. I just couldn't be everywhere I needed to be. So it's so good to be here. My semester has ended, as Michelle had mentioned, and I'm looking forward to the work I'll be doing in chaplaincy. But today I come to speak to you of hope as an act of rebellion. But rebellion against what? Many things, like resignation. We rebel against the lie that nothing can change. We rebel against the normalization of suffering, the routinization of inequality and cynicism. We rebel against systems of exploitation, capitalism that thrives on worker exhaustion, racism that thrives on division, colonialism that thrives on erasure. Hope makes these systems tremble because it reminds us we deserve more. It reminds us we are not powerless, that another way is possible. We rebel against shame, the internalized belief that if we are struggling, it must be our fault. Hope says no. Hope says you're not broken, the system is. We rebel against individualism too, the notion that we must fend for ourselves alone. Let me begin with the truth that colonialism, defined as domination and exploitation of one people or territory by another, often through settlement, economic control, cultural erasure, and political rule, is about power. Taking land, extricating resources, controlling people's bodies, labor, and identities, and imposing the colonizer's systems, beliefs, and values onto the colonized. But colonialism is not just an event in history, it's a system and a mindset. And many of its structures still shape our world today through economies, inequality, systemic racism, environmental degradation, and cultural marginalization. The hard truth is that colonialism only works because we do lose hope. It doesn't just conquer with weapons and laws, it conquers with despair. It operates more efficiently when the colonized and the oppressed and the marginalized believe that change is impossible. And here's how it does that. First, through silencing resistance. When people are hopeless, they are less likely to organize, protest, or imagine alternatives. Colonialism thrives when we say that's just the way it is. It needs our silence. It needs our consent. It counts on it. It justifies exploitation. If a colonized people lose hope in our own worth, the colonizer's exploitation seems justified. They sell us this myth that they're here to help. Maybe they even believe that myth. It maintains economic control. Colonial systems are designed to do one thing, and that's to extract wealth. Hopelessness convinces the poor that poverty is permanent, that labor exploitation is normal, that ownership is for someone else. In a social media post I read recently, a meme claimed that billionaires should be required to simply supply their labor force with health service and maybe some affordable housing. Over 80% of the respondents disagreed. In fact, suggesting it's their money, let them do with it what they will. This is a necessary psychological framework of hopelessness and internalized inferiority, and we've accepted it. These systems require the poor and working class to believe that their circumstances are natural, inevitable, even deserved. When people come to accept poverty as permanent and exploitation as normal, resistance becomes unthinkable or even unpatriotic. This is not a failure of moral imagination. It is the result of generations of systemic conditioning. The psychology of oppression teaches people to defend the very systems that harm them. This is what Paulo Freire calls the internalization of the oppressor, when workers believe that billionaires owe them nothing. Even when those billionaires profit from their labor, it reflects a deeply ingrained narrative that wealth is a result of individual virtue rather than a system of advantage. The belief that it's their money, let them do with it as they will, overlooks the essential truth that wealth is not created in isolation. It is generated collectively, often on the backs of unpaid, uninsured, and overworked laborers. This psychological conditioning is reinforced by cultural myths of the self-made man, the American dream, And the idea that hard work alone guarantees success. These narratives are tools of social control. They shift blame for poverty onto the individual while shielding the powerful from scrutiny. When healthcare and housing are framed as gifts rather than human rights or earned necessities, we reveal how deeply hope has been strangled. Hope in collective responsibility, in economic justice, in the idea that a more humane system is possible. Ultimately, colonial capitalism counts on our disconnection, not just from wealth, but from one another. It fragments communities and isolates workers so that outrages become resignation and solidarity is replaced by suspicion. Restoring hope means reclaiming the belief that labor should be dignified and that everyone deserves to thrive and that no one becomes a billionaire without benefiting from a society that is morally bound to care for them. Colonialism does the worst thing. It destroys imagination. Perhaps most dangerously, it shrinks the imagination. It wants us to believe there is no future beyond the systems that we've inherited. Hope then becomes a threat to colonialism because hope imagines liberation. Hope builds solidarity. Hope fuels action. It says the world is not fixed. We can unmake what has been made. But colonialism counts on our despair. Systems of domination, whether colonial, economic, racial, or patriarchal, do not merely rely on control of land or labor, they rely on the erosion of hope. These systems will stop. Hope we stop hoping. They hope we forget the power of our imagination and that we'll grow weary, that we believe change is impossible, and that we'll convince ourselves we are alone. Colonialism is not just a political or historical force, it's a spiritual strategy of despair. And the antidote, the resistance, the rebellion is hope. When I speak of hope, I don't mean a sugar-coated optimism or a platitude slapped over real pain, real life lived experience with a Band-Aid. When I think of hope, I think of it as a powerful and motivating force that stems from human resilience and the belief in our ability to overcome challenges. Hope is what makes us show up again and again after being knocked down. It makes us reach for one another when we could just as easily shut down and turn away. It's not the absence of fear. It is the determination to move forward anyway. Hope is grounded in our capacity to change as individuals and as communities. It is the confidence in our ability to innovate, to adapt, and to grow, and it must be married with empathy and compassion, otherwise it risks becoming individualistic, disconnected from the collective healing we so desperately need. Hope isn't something we sit around and wait for. Hope is something we must build. I personally find hope in awe, in a beautiful song that gives me goosebumps, in a work of art that catches something of the human condition I hadn't yet found the words for, in the laughter, real deep belly laughter, that reminds me that joy is not only possible but necessary. And I find hope in the earth, despite what we've done to her, despite the exploitation, the extractions, the pollution. She keeps showing us how to regenerate, how to begin again and again, and how to heal. My hope lives in the dirt and the wind and the oceans and the seeds, in the green things that sprout from rubble, in the fireweed that blooms after wildfire. Earth, like us, knows how to begin again. She simply doesn't know how to quit. Sometimes, as hard as it is, I also find hope in us, in humanity and the goodness I know that lives here, in our resilience, in our knowledge, in our ability to connect across difference, to care and to build and to evolve. And in the aftermath of trauma, I find hope in our ability to heal, not because healing is easy or linear, it's not, but because we've seen people do it. I've seen it, I've experienced it. People who have known heartbreak and horror and still choose to love again, still choose to show up and still choose to grow. Mind-blowing. This is the stubborn brilliance of the human experience, the human spirit. And here's the other thing about hope is that it spreads, and I say we should spread it like a biological weapon. Infect as many people as possible with the knowledge that they too carry power, that they too can make change, that they too are worthy and resilient and capable and necessary. Sometimes hope is quiet, a soft word, a listening ear. Sometimes hope is loud, it screams, it roars. Sometimes it comes in the form of a well-placed snarl. Systems hope we stop hoping. They hope we'll forget the power of imagination, that we'll grow weary. Sometimes our hope looks like showing up to a fight. Other times it looks like showing up to a potluck. Mm-hmm. I suggest we throw hope like a monkey throws its poop. Fling it. Throw it at those we love and those we struggle to love, because dang, do they need hope too. I began this today with a truth about colonialism. Let me end with another truth. When you lead your life with hope, you are a rebel. You are making good trouble. You are sending a message to every cell in your body to keep healing. It is the ultimate in self-care. I leave you with this. Resist the temptation to believe that we are doomed, that change cannot happen, that we are stuck, that this is the best it can be. Resist imperfectly, but resist. So when we do, we are not being naive. We are being dangerous. We are rejecting apathy. We are refusing to be silent. We are insisting on joy and on justice and on each other. Hope is the first act of rebellion and the sustaining force behind all that follows. Amen and blessed be.